Hello everyone, today is 8th of January. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So today we will be taking a quote from the Woodrow Wilson. He says, "There is no higher religion than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest creed." Now guys, this idea corresponds to the idea given by Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans, who says service to man is service to God. So basically, the Woodrow Wilson had kept the humanism as the premise of every religion to every devotion. Now, guys, this particular idea becomes very much important for our GS paper number 4, ethics, because into the ethics, compassion and empathy has been called as one of the foundational value of the civil servant. And compassion and empathy, both these value basically revolves around the value of giving the highest regard to the human entity. So guys, that's all about the GS folder. Guys, yesterday I was not able to post the video because I was not well as I was struck into some very unavoidable kind of situation. Hence my apologies for that thing. And now guys, let's start with the newspaper analysis. Now, guys, let's take the first article. Friends, first of all, today's the Hindu paper, the first page, the editorial section, as well as towards the last, it is entirely filled with the incident which happened at the US Capitol. And the same thing has been carried in majorly all the newspapers. But still, there are some very good references also which have came into the other newspapers. We'll be focusing on them. Now, guys, let's see that what incident has happened into the USA. Now, guys, first of all, you might be knowing that recently the US elections held and into them the Joe Biden has turned to be the victorious, and from start the Donald Trump was alleging that into the election the fraud has happened and he doesn't endorses the result and he is still the rightful president of the US. Now guys, into this particular direction, the loyalists to the Donald Trump and Republican Party, they were protesting around the Capitol region. Now guys, as all this was happening, there was one more aspect to this particular development. See, we know that the Joe Biden won the elections for the presidentship, but at the same time, the Democratic Party, they are not having the majority into the Senate. Now guys, the Senate, it has 100 members and the Democratic Party, they were only having the 48 members, and they wanted at least 50 members if they want to carry any of the legislative agenda into the Senate, and they were short. Now guys, into the meanwhile, there were the elections which were being held into the state of Georgia. And into these runoff elections, basically it was nearly anticipated that here also the Democratic Party will not be winning because Georgia has been the stronghold region of the Republican Party. But guys, there was a sudden turn of events, and into the Georgia runoff elections, the two seats they fell into the stronghold of the Democratic, and finally the Democrats got the 50 seat into the Senate. Now 50 members they have. Plus, guys, even if there will be the case of a tie, then the Vice President Kamala Harris has the power that she can decide, cast a deciding vote and can break the die. And obviously, the Kamala Harris, she will be voting into the favor of the Democrats. So here, the Democrats got the much head away. Now, as this one development happened, guys, there was also the Congress which came together to finally endorse the name of the Joe Biden as the rightful president of the US, and his swearing in ceremony or the inauguration was scheduled to be held on to the 20th January, and into this particular direction only the Congress it convened at the Capitol. Now guys, Capitol is the name of the premises where the Congress meets. So you might have seen this iconic building into the USA. It is the Capitol. Now, as this entire development was happening, there were some rioters who entered into the Capitol complex, and they basically ransacked the entire building, entire area, and there are many disturbing images which had came out of this particular incident. And across the world, different leaders, they have expressed their concern as well as their disappointment onto this particular event. Now, finally, the Donald Trump also had said that he will be allowing the peaceful transition of new president onto the 20 January, but he doesn't accepts the verdict Still, now guys, into the meanwhile, an unprecedented thing also happened into the USA, that the tech giants have reacted. For example, the Facebook had suspended the account of the Donald Trump indefinitely, and at the same time, the Twitter also had kept the account of the Donald Trump onto hold. Now guys, there is a question coming that by this particular incident, we can call that it is number A, the irony, because America stands for the democracy's installation into the entire world, and into the name of democracy, Iraq was invaded by the USA, and now the same undemocratic kind of things are happening into the USA. Secondly, guys, this particular incident has also imposed the deep polarization that is going into the society, and how far this polarization has been exploited by the Donald Trump. Right now, guys, into the USA, there is a kind of a wedge which is being driven by the white collar employees and the blue collar employees, and blue collar employees believe that the white collar employees, they are earning far more than the labor that they are paying, and therefore the inequality has been created into the society. Meanwhile, guys, there is a kind of a backlash which is going towards two forces, that is the globalization as well as the immigration that is happening, and Donald Trump had basically leveraged on both of these things, globalization and immigration. For example, guys, into the direction of immigration, he had repeatedly invoked the ban over the H1B visa, N1 visa, M1 visa, F1 visa, and similarly onto the globalization also. The USA had withdrawn from so many of the pacts, and now as finally the Donald Trump's presidentship is going to over, the pro-reactionary elements are coming to the fore. Now, guys, this particular fact needs to be decoded into this particular light, that into the entire world now the political leaders, they are reaping the sentiments of people, and globalization, nationalism, etc. are being put onto the center stage, and the citizens need to be wise so that they are not letting the political parties to exploit their such kind of sentiments. And even in India, such kind of things needed to be kept in mind. So guys, that's all about this particular article. Once for all, we have discussed all the issues into this particular respect, and please keep in mind, don't unnecessarily follow the infinite articles that will now be coming into this particular light. So guys, that's all, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Business Standard as well as the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the recent 301 report that has been prepared by the USTR, into which India's tax system has been called as discriminatory. Now, guys, first of all, this particular article is important for our GS paper number 3 under the ease of doing business impacting factors into India. Now, guys, before going into this particular article, I will try to explain you the background as what has happened. See, India recently in 2020 has carried an amendment via the Finance Act 2020, and here now the new tax, that is the digital service tax, has been imposed by India onto the foreign companies who are operating in India. Now, into this particular direction you can take, there will be the Chinese company of Alibaba which is operating in India. Then there are the US firms, for example, the Facebook, Amazon, Apple, etc. So all will be covered under this digital service tax. Now the objective of the tax is that whatever revenue that they are generating, onto that revenue 2% of the tax will be levied. Now, guys, it has been said by the United States Trade Representative that under the section number 301 given under their Trade Act 1974, they have the power that whenever any country is taking any kind of policy action which will be discriminatory towards their own companies, then they can retaliate by that particular action. And now the US is saying that the amendment which has been carried and this new digital service tax has been imposed onto the companies, it will be negatively impacting the USA. So therefore they are preparing that retaliation might be given against all such countries where similar kind of action had happened. Now, guys, India is not alone into this particular direction. We can see that similar tax have been arose in many of the countries. For example, Italy, Turkey. Further, there is France also, which has imposed such kind of tax. Further, it has been said that India's such tax is even against the General Agreement on Trade, which India has signed under the aegis of the WTO. Now, guys, if I tell you, it is not the first time that India is doing such kind of thing. Even in 2016, India came with the equalization levy of 6%, which were basically a tax on business to business transactions which are happening. Let me try to explain you this also. See what happens. Suppose Mr. A and he is running some kind of a business to which he wants to advertise, and therefore he had taken the services from the Facebook that you please advertise my business onto your platform. Now, the Facebook will be charging money, and this money will be between two entities, that is A, who is running the business or the Facebook, and both are this transaction is the business to business transaction. So, it was said that within these transactions, whatever the amount of transaction will be, onto that 66%, sorry, the tax will be charged. And this was the equalization levy. It was very much popular in 2016 by the name of the Google tax, and even UPSC has asked a question on it into the prelims examination also. Now, guys, it has been said that now the DST, that is the digital service tax, which has been imposed by the India, it is similar to the equalization levy or the Google tax, which were imposed way back in 2016, and India is targeted the US companies. Now, guys, India has also provided into their own defense that no, it is not against the US, and therefore it is not violation of the section number 301 of the USTR, because even if a company from China will be coming, from Italy will be coming, from Pakistan will be coming, every company will be subjected to this particular kind of tax. So nothing bad is there. However, guys, we have to see for the time being that as this particular matter will be unfolding, whether the US will be convinced by such argument of India or whether some further implications will be there. Now, guys, recently, if you remember, we have also discussed that there was the Cairn tax dispute also which was going on, and into this Cairn tax dispute, it was held that the India's tax demand has been unfair. And guys, if here under section 301 also India's regime is being called as unfair, then it will be a major blow onto the ease of doing business sentiment into India. So, guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken the Business Standard newspaper as well as from the Mint newspaper. Now, guys, what is this particular article? It is talking about the new WhatsApp policy and how this policy will be having major implication. Now, guys, see, this article will be important for our GS paper number 2 under the right to privacy and how the right to privacy is being breached by the tech giants, and guys, why there is an urgent need to bring the data protection law into the India. Now, first of all, let's see the background as what has happened. Recently, the WhatsApp has changed their policy, and as per their policy, they have said that now they will be sharing all the data which is being generated onto the WhatsApp with their parent company, Facebook. And the Facebook calls that it is an attempt to bring the better services to their users. They will be studying the patterns and will be trying to improve their products. Now, guys, first of all, let's see that what type of information is being asked. So they want to know your service settings, user interactions, time that you spend there, frequency, duration of your activity, log files, diagnostic log. Further, they also want to see your calling, your statuses, your groups to which you are added, the payments or business features that you are using, your profile photo, your about information, whether you are online, how much time you used the WhatsApp, what was your last status. Further, they also want to take some other type of information also. For example, the operating system that you are using, your browser, your IP address, your phone number, your service identifier, what is the battery level which you were having when the last time you used WhatsApp, what is your signal strength, app version. So all these things will be asked. Now the question comes that whether such a trend is creepy or whether it is something normal. Now, guys, see, from very start of the days, we know that these tech giants, they depend onto the data harvest, and by that data only they are generating their revenue. So the data collection has been done since the past, but earlier the data collection which was being done, it was into the silos. The Facebook was different, it was collecting its own data. WhatsApp was different, it was collecting its own data. But now when these two silos will be merged into each other, then various informations will now be making much more sense, and even now much more intrusion into the privacy can happen. Now, just suppose that earlier you were logged into the Facebook account and your name was Mr. X, and there you registered some other number. Now into the WhatsApp you are using some other number. Now when the same data will be under one parent window, it will be known that Mr. X mobile number is not actually this, rather his number is this. And into some kind and into this particular way, the artificial intelligence can draw unlimited kind of patterns, and we will even be more susceptible to the scrutiny and surveillance that is being carried by the tech giants. And further, guys, as the Facebook itself says that there are 400 million plus users in India who are using the WhatsApp. So getting such large information of so many people will be leading to some dire consequences into the future. Now, guys, see, though that thing is very clear that your chats are still end to end encrypted, they cannot be read, but still the other informations which is being harvested, they can conveniently portray a kind of a psychological profile of a user. So all these are the concerns into this particular regard. And now, guys, even more disturbing is the binary effect that has been created into the society. Now, what is the binary effect? It simply means that today the users are having only two options, that either they agree to the WhatsApp policy or they disagree. If they agree, they can continue to use the WhatsApp and their services subject to the compromise over their privacy. But if they disagree, then the WhatsApp is saying that they can exit from the platform, and up till 8th February only they have to give their consent. Now the question comes that if we exit from the WhatsApp, do we have any such other viable alternative? Though there are other platforms also, for example, there might be the Telegram and other messengers, but the question comes whether all your contacts are also using that messenger, and what is the fun of having a messenger which only you are using? So basically such kind of monopoly has been created by the big tech that today they are dictating their terms. Either you can accept or you can leave, and leaving is not an option. So a new monopoly, a kind of a new imperialism, tech imperialism, is now going on, where the terms are being dictated irrespective of users actual consent. So guys, this is all into this particular direction, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Business Standard, and it is telling that how under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana there is a lag which has come with respect to the issue of the RuPay cards. Now, first of all, guys, let's understand what this entire matter is, and then we will understanding the implications as why it is important. Now, this article is important under GS paper number 3, the topic of financial inclusion, banking service, and issues related to the Indian economy. Now, see, first of all, government is running its flagship scheme, that is the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which is a scheme to include every person into the banking umbrella. Now, under the scheme, the basic saving account is provided, which is essentially a no-frill account. It means that you don't need to maintain any balance here. Then the RuPay card is also given with this account. With this RuPay card, you can use onto the ATM, onto the point of sale terminals, onto the e-commerce, and even an accidental death cover or the total disability cover worth rupees 2 lakh also comes with this RuPay card. Now, basically, the people who are opening their Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana account, they are the people who are basically poor people belonging to the lower middle income class groups, or workers involved into the informal sector. Such kind of people are using it, and for them, all these benefits are very much instrumental. Now, guys, here if we can see, these are the number of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts that has been opened into the public sector banks, regional rural banks, private sector bank, and these are the number of the RuPay cards that has been issued to you. And according to the government's own survey, it has been provided that by December 30, 2020, 450 million such beneficiaries have been added, but only 306 million RuPay cards have been given. Now the question comes that, guys, we actually did not only wanted to open their bank accounts, we also had an agenda to further the idea of the less cash economy, or the digital economy, where the reliance over the hard cash needs to be less. Moreover, guys, the banking only will be effective if the ease of banking is also being given to the citizen. If every time to withdraw the money, if he had to physically visit the bank, then his incentive to keep the money into the account will be lost, and eventually he will not be using his bank account. So into this particular capacity, giving them ATM card is just like to give them a kind of an ease, and by this particular ease, they will be more inclined to use the bank account. So a kind of a circular effect was to be there, but by such less number of cards, we can see that government is missing a point. Now the question comes that what is the fundamental reason that such less ATM cards have been issued? So there are some reasons. Let's see. Number one is MDR issue. What is MDR issue? See, whenever you do a transaction, you might have seen that the person asks you like 1.5% extra, 2% extra. What he's asking? He is asking you the merchant discount rate, which is a kind of a convenience fees. Guys, see, today you are making the card transactions. There are the card operator or the payment gateway companies. Payment gateway companies are, for example, the MasterCard, Visa, etc. Now they are facilitating your entire payment. So for that particular thing, they ask a commission to the tune of 1.5% or 2% on every transaction, and therefore the basically the shop operator or the merchant who has asked you money, he's asking you this MDR. Now it has been provided that onto the RuPay card there will be no MDR. So therefore, guys, actually the banks are disinterested in selling these particular kind of cards and are not giving them, because in this place, if we will give you the MasterCard or the Visa card, onto that the MDR will be coming. So the banks are disinterested because it is not a profit making venture, one particular kind of understanding. Then guys, it has been said that actually today there is no need even to give this particular card. Why? Because you have seen that India has been a successful country where the UPI revolution had come, and by this UPI revolution today people are sending the money, receiving the money without actually the card. They receive it via their basically Paytm apps, via their Bheem apps, and into the same way they are sending and making the payments also. Further guys, it has been said that today the thumb impression has replaced the physical cards. Guys, if you see into the rural areas, there are the bank sathis which are going on, and they are carrying a POS machine. Onto the POS machine, the people can mark their thumb imprint and the bank sathi will be giving them the money. There is again also no use of the card. Further guys, it has been said that at last the bank's capacity is also weak. They are logistically not equipped that with every bank account they can give a card. Moreover guys, recently large number of card has been replaced with the chip based card, and as in enough of the quantity these cards have not been procured by the bank, so therefore their capacity to give them is very weak. So these are some of the reasons. But guys, still there always needs to be an element of choice that needs to be given. And if by choice a person is not using a debit card, that is not a problem. But if by compulsion he is not using a debit card, that is he's not even having, then that is a problem. So this thing needs to be considered. That's all about this particular article. Now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this particular article has been taken from the Business Standard, and it is talking about the recent world's first double stack container train that has been launched by the Prime Minister onto the dedicated freight corridor section. And even this dedicated freight corridor section has now been just inaugurated. Guys, first of all, what this dedicated freight corridor, all such kind of things already we have discussed on the 30th of December newspaper analysis, where we have seen that a section was inaugurated onto the eastern part of the dedicated freight corridor. If you want, you can also follow this particular article on 30th of December. Now guys, first of all, let's understand what are these double stack container trains which we are talking about. So guys, here into this particular picture, if you can see, these basically there are the two stacks of the container which is kept over one over each other. So this is first stack, this is the second stack. Now this particular system was guys actually invented into the USA in year 1984 as an efficient way to transport the more amount of cargo into the same time within the same capacities, and since then many of the countries have utilized it. Now guys, it is said that here world's first double stack container train has been launched. So basically it is a dedicated double stack container train that is being talked about here. However guys, as we talk about the dedicated freight corridor, so these are the two parts. One is the western part, other is the eastern part. This western part, it starts from the Dadri and goes up till Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, Mumbai, Maharashtra. Then the other parts, it is starting around the Ludhiana. Basically the exact name of the region is the Sasaneval, and it goes up till the Dankuni into the West Bengal. Now guys, it has been said that by this particular initiative, the benefit will be given to some many such kind of intercities which whose potential of growth has been stopped because they were not properly properly mapped or they were not onto the infrastructural landscape of India. So such cities will again be put onto the major landscape of India. Secondly, guys, the movement will become fast. It has been said that into the times to come, nearly 3x or triple the speed will be increased of the cargo. After that, it has been said that it will also reduce the congestion over the passenger segment. And finally, guys, it will be making the India's transportation speed up, and therefore will be bringing the cost saving for the business enterprises. For example, guys, here you can see that one train carries 360 10 feet container equivalent unit, which is equivalent to 270 high capacity trailer trucks. Now one train which is doing the work of the 270 trucks, it will be reducing the kind of a congestion over the national highways also. And guys, you know that today in India 1.5 lakh people are dying every year due to the death onto the highways. Our highways are also overstretched, so onto that particular direction also it will be bringing many respite. So guys, that's all about this particular article, nothing very much apart from this. So now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, here into this particular article, we can see that a question has been raised that whether the industrialization in India has stagnated. And this particular question is being raised onto the basis of the NSS, that is the National Sample Survey data, which captured the status of the 90% Indian population cities. It has been said that India is going now into the deindustrialization. Deindustrialization is actually a stage where the decline comes into the share of manufacturing into the GDP. Basically, guys, there are three terms. One is the industrialization, where the manufacturing share is increasing. Other is the stagnation into the industrialization, where it is on to the same level. And then there is the deindustrialization, where the share into the manufacturing comes down. And this is basically the third stage happens into the developed economies, where the service sector develops to such an extent that people migrate there due to higher skill set. Now, deindustrialization in a developing country like India is something a disturbing fact. Now, guys, if we talk into this particular article, actually, very specific reasons had not been talked about. This article is just giving a reference of one other article that has been published into the Economic and Political Weekly. Guys, today I will share this Economic Political Weekly article onto our Telegram. So, onto the Telegram, you can read this entire article there. It is, guys, just talking about the phase that India might be going, and for that particular thing, you can use the expression of the deindustrialization which is going to happen into the India, and that thing is very sure that Make in India has not been able to perform. Guys, please check the Telegram. The link has been given into the description for the article of this EPW. So that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular infographic has been taken from the Business Standard, and a very good reference has been given here, which we can use into GS paper number 3 under the topic of a startup ecosystem in India. Guys, recently a report has been published by the NASCOM and Zinov. According to them, it has been said that nearly 1,600 tech startups have been entered into the startup ecosystem, and this is a very high number. And guys, also the 12 new players have become the unicorn. Now, first of all, what we mean by the unicorn? Unicorn are those startups whose valuation has actually increased to more than $1 billion. Now, guys, here we can see that the prominent themes are the health tech startups, the ed tech startups, enterprise startups, as well as the agri tech startups. Particularly, guys, into the agriculture, where we can see that the new startups can bring many of the opportunities. However, today there is a protest also which is going on that the corporate, when it will be entering into agriculture, it might bring the disruption also. So, guys, when the startups are coming into the agriculture, it is also a kind of a corporate entry. So here the views have been very much mixed. Now, guys, the 2020 has been a very good year for the startups because the digital acceleration has increased here because the people were confined into the home and the social distancing, physical mobility was restricted. Secondly, guys, today the vocal for local demand has also been very much high, due to which the indigenously grown startups are they are getting a particular leverage. Moreover, guys, it has been provided that today people's acceptance to the digitally aided convenience, etc., has also been very much high. So, guys, all are these important factors into this particular direction. Please utilize it as a reference point into the GS paper number 3 related answer. So that's it, guys. Now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and this article can serve as a reference point into the GS paper number 2 under the topics of governance. Now, guys, always it has been said that India's problem is not the absence of the schemes, rather, India's problem is the non implementation of the prevailing schemes. Into this particular direction only, this article is pointing out. Guys, what had happened in 2017, you might be knowing that the government announced the National Nutrition Mission, under which it was said that every quarter the committees will be constituted which will be deliberating the status of the hunger, the status of nutrition in India, and they will be suggesting what future actions are to be taken, what steps are to be decided. Guys, into this particular direction, there were the three committees. Number one was the National Nutrition Council. This was headed by the Niti Aayog's vice chairman and also included the 12 union members and 5 chief ministers onto the rotation basis. After that, the next committee was the executive committee of the National Nutrition Mission. So it was also having a very high profile membership ratio. The same ways, guys, there was also the National Technical Board on Nutrition, which was established. Now, all these committees, they were expected that they will be meeting every quarter and will be deliberating onto the hunger, nutrition, etc. But guys, into the last year, they have repeatedly failed to meet, and the reason that is being given, it is the pandemic of the COVID-19. But guys, even a question comes that actually the pandemic of COVID-19 is the exact situation when more focus was to be given onto these committees. Guys, it has been specifically provided by the United Nations that into the pandemic, more than 55% people into the world are not having any social security. Moreover, guys, the Food and Agricultural Organization as well as the United Nations had propounded that since 2016 the hunger is increasing, and now into the COVID-19 it has further exacerbated to a alarming level, and their not meeting of the nutrition committees is a kind of a lapse that has carried into this particular direction. So guys, please use it as a reference point. So that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the World Food Price Index, which is increasing for the 7th straight month. Now, guys, first of all, let's see what this World Food Price Index is. It is a kind of an indicative figure which is released by the Food and Agricultural Organization, and it is basically measuring the prices or the monthly change into the prices onto the basket of cereals, oil seeds, dairy products, meat, and sugar. Now, guys, after this, you don't actually need to go to see that what percent price has increased everywhere, but into this particular year, constantly the World Food Price Index has been high. Guys, last time the such critical high figures were earlier in 2011 when there was a 25% rise. Now, guys, in 2020 also such a historic price rise is a matter of concern because into the COVID-19 there is a huge income insecurity into the people, and at the same time the rising food prices will again impose a kind of a matter of concern. Guys, into this particular thing, one additional point, if you remember, Sophie Report 2020 was announced, and according to the Sophie Report, it was said that the cost of a healthy, nutritious diet is approximately 143 rupees, which is more than 3 times high than the official poverty line of India. So, guys, so many people are not able to afford the food. Please keep such kind of references very much ready, and if a question comes, please substitute such kind of questions with such references. So, guys, that's all about this particular article. Guys, I hope that you are able to make the sense of the newspaper articles, and this particular initiative is proving to be helpful for you. Guys, if you like our initiative, please like the video, comment the video, and please help us to share this initiative. So that's it. Thank you so much.